Hello and welcome back to my video podcast on the future of business and technology. Today's topic is the AI success formula, or why technology and skills must evolve together. The rapid rise of AI is transforming how we work, but organizations are discovering that successful AI adoption requires two essential ingredients: the right technology and the right skills. Today, we're diving into fascinating new research from Microsoft that reveals why these elements must evolve together and how this delicate balance is becoming crucial for business success and talent retention in the AI era. My guest today is Ben Coley, who is the Senior Surface Global Black Belt at Microsoft. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Bernard. Great to be here.
That's a very cool title. Global Black Belt in Surface. So what does that actually mean?
Absolutely. So essentially, it's a sort of team of subject matter experts, and for me, that is Surface Devices, of course, who work alongside mainly customers, sometimes partners, to talk through our device portfolio, Surface Devices, technology investments, essentially looking at customers who are considering Surface Devices and talking them through what the portfolio looks like and how they can take advantage of it, and then working with customers who are already invested to make sure that they're leveraging the value of the investments that they've made in that technology.
Very good. That sounds like, yeah, talking to customers and working with them every day on devices sounds pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Um, you let's dive into the research then. So the recent research shows that there's a really strong appetite for AI adoption. What are the key drivers behind that?
It's a good question. I think there are two main drivers from my point of view. I think there's a demand from incoming employees, whether they be graduates, for example, or younger generations who use AI already in their personal life on their own personal devices. And then there's also, from an organizational side, the need to make use of silo business data in order to stay competitive. I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of that data out there, but it's all often disconnected or in disparate systems, and it's about how do they pull that information together and then present it in a way that is useful to that organization. And that's what I see as being kind of some of those key drivers behind the want or the need to adopt AI from the customers that we're talking to.
Yeah, so it's driven by employees who want to use AI and also by organizations to drive their use of data, but I guess also driving efficiency. Um,
Absolutely.
so the report reveals this interesting tension between technology readiness and skills readiness. What is the current state of play that you've seen in the research?
Yeah, the research, like you said, was very interesting, and it shows that there is this perception that about a quarter of employees don't think their device is good enough to run AI, whether that's cloud AI or local AI, which can be a perception rather than reality, which increases to over a third with Gen Z. And what we're finding is that this is generating more of a demand, I would say, for modern AI-equipped devices to enable them to take advantage of all these new AI technologies that are on offer, that help make their lives easier and, as you say, drive more efficiencies from that. I'd say that's also coupled with skills readiness, where employees feel that they could benefit from more training on how to use AI more effectively. If organizations start looking at rolling out AI, but the users don't understand what value it can bring to them or how they can get the best out of it, whether that's cloud-based AI or on the edge device-based AI, like we've talked about, that's the sort of thing that they kind of want to see.
Yeah, and I guess people like us who see these developments every single day, there's so much exciting stuff happening, so many new innovations coming along, devices with those capabilities, but then adoption rates are still very low. Just a non-Microsoft survey. There was a recent survey in the UK that surveyed leaders, and it found that only 2% of them said 2% admitted that they were using generative AI regularly in their organization, which is pretty shocking, I find. So why do you think it is so crucial that organizations address both hardware capabilities and skill development in parallel?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if you give everyone AI technology but don't explain how to use it, as I said, then some of the workforce may figure out where it can add the most value to them in the specific roles that they have in their day-to-day business. And if you upgrade their hardware capabilities, they gain a great new device potentially there, but they won't be using it to its full extent. So customers investing in this technology effectively don't realize the benefit of that investment. And that's why I think it's so important to do both of those things in
Mm.
parallel. So users effectively gain both the technology, but also an understanding of how to use it. And think linking the two together shows the workforce that as a business that you're investing not just in their device hardware, but also in the individuals themselves as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I see this in my own circle of friends. They might get their latest new smartphone, and then I talk to them and say, "Hey, did you try all of these cool AI features on it?" And we didn't even know they had them. So there's definitely a big education gap as well. Um, Let's talk about technology then first. The survey says that 40% of IT leaders feel that their organizations are falling behind. What are some of the specific hardware challenges they are facing?
Well, I'd say a lot of customers I speak to are finding that some of the older hardware that they have in their estate broadly is struggling to keep up with these requirements for employees and related technologies like AI. And whether that's insufficient technical specifications that they may have previously invested in, or it's just dated hardware, or maybe it's the lack of newer hardware that's specifically designed to augment technologies like AI, such as having something like an NPU, neural processing unit, or an AI code processor, if you like, which is much more powerful, but also a far more efficient way of handling these types of tasks. Or sometimes it can be security related advancements, such as technologies like the Pluton security chip, the Microsoft engineered piece of silicon that takes care of hardware security operations, that's built into the CPU of the device to ensure code integrity. These are the types of technologies we're building into Copilot Plus PCs, like the Surface device range as an example, making them some of the fastest, most intelligent Windows PCs ever built. And I think that's potentially the sort of gaps that people are starting to notice appearing in their organization when they have these older investments in hardware.
Yeah, I'd love to get some practical examples from you. I mean, someone that works with organizations all day long and sees how they're using some of these latest devices with their AI capabilities. Is there anything that you saw that you think this is really interesting, this is worth sharing?
Absolutely. There are some Microsoft technologies, and there's also partner technologies that take advantage of these components that I'm referencing. So we have upcoming technologies like Recall that enables you to see what you've done on your PC. And when we talk to customers, there's a lot of times where users will highlight a need to have a feature like that because they know the information's passed through their screen at some point, but they're not quite sure when. And so they want the ability to kind of go back and look at that. And we've seen a lot of interest in Copilot Plus PCs specifically because that's a technology that can be offered. Also, with some of the partner applications that I've looked at, there are apps that utilize AI to help with things like accessibility, which is an area I'm particularly passionate about, where you can do things like point a camera at a scene and it will talk to you about things that it sees in the scene. So if you perhaps have vision-based difficulties, for example, or disabilities around sight, then it can pick out those things in the environment. Now, these are obviously really useful pieces of technology, and they're also things that people haven't had access to before. And I think it's those kind of discussions we're having with customers that is really eye-opening for them in terms of what this may be able to bring should they make these investments.
Yeah, the recall feature sounds really interesting. So is this basically an AI that basically monitors what's happening, and then if you have read something, received an email, it can then recall this, or and how would organizations potentially use that?
Essentially, the way recall works is if it's passed through the display of the device, if you like, if you've seen it on your screen, then you can use the AI assistant to go back and look for that data. And then it will show you effectively a screen capture, if you like, of what that looks like. So naturally, there are security and compliance controls around it, and we have that really well documented. But that's an example of how a feature like that might work. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. The research also has revealed some interesting findings around the the skills gap that we are seeing. And one finding that I found particularly interesting is that only 24% of Gen X feel AI ready. Do you think that this is creating a generational divide, and how is this playing out in the workplace?
We speak to customers about this regularly, as you might imagine, and what we're seeing is, as I kind of referenced earlier, there is this emerging part of the workforce that are quick to adopt AI because, again, they're utilizing it in their personal lives, as you mentioned, on their personal devices already. They already understand the benefits that it provides to them as individuals personally, but also as employees of their organization. But this is why we do think it's important that organizations address the skills gap, because, as you mentioned, there are areas of the business, Gen X is one example, where there is a skills gap and there is an investment required to make sure that those people are AI ready, as opposed to being less AI ready as they might feel right now. By providing the right tools, the right training, will effectively ensure that for those organizations, nobody ends up left behind. And hopefully that will then close that divide that is currently forming in people's organizations.
Yeah, and this is something I'm seeing as well. I think the organizations that are really successful at implementing AI are those that are addressing technology and skills together and put proper investment in reskilling and upskilling their people. What was also interesting is that the research shows that 60% of people who are considering leaving an organization would potentially stay if given more digital skills training. So, what does this tell you about the link between AI capabilities and talent retention?
Yeah, so it's a good one. So, of course, we all know AI as a technology is moving incredibly quickly, but I do think it provides opportunities for everyone in an organization, regardless of where they are in the workforce in their respective careers, to be able to optimize their workflows, as you mentioned, gain efficiencies, be more productive as employees. The customers that I've spoken to that have done this successfully are finding that it helps with the talent acquisition and retention side of things as well, because effectively, as you mentioned, it is showing those employees that form the part of their workforce that they're the ones being invested in. It's not just a technology investment or a hardware investment or even a cloud investment. It's an investment in the people that is then in turn giving those folks the digital skills they need to be successful in this new era of AI that we effectively find ourselves in.
Yes, and I see successful organizations really creating internal programs to train their people. They create networks so people can learn from each other, and give people the space to learn. I think that is so important to give them, I guess, space, time, and money. Even though I find that lots of the skills you will need, you can now pick up for free. There's so many amazing courses out there that people can take.
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
there's an interesting finding about Gen Z. It says that they are twice as likely to switch companies to future-proof their careers. How do you think organizations should respond to that?
Yeah, it's a really, really tough challenge to solve. But I do think it, as we've discussed, I think it highlights the need to invest in those employees now, both in terms of the digital skills, but also the technology and the hardware that they're actually using day to day. And by giving them this level of this training, this access to this technology, I think that they would feel less like they need to move in order to future proof their careers. So, effectively, by giving them access to tech like AI, giving them a modern device to get the best from it, and then crucially, as we've discussed, giving them training on how to use it as well. I suspect those companies will find that part of their workforce, specifically, as you mentioned, the Gen Z part, are far less likely to feel the need to move on in order to accomplish those career goals and aspirations that they have.
Yeah, and just while we're talking, what's interesting is that if we have generative AI capabilities, then we can actually use some of those to learn, right? These tools are amazing at helping us understand things and learn new skills.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, completely agree. The tools are out there. It's just that the folks need to be trained on how to take the most advantage of them.
Hmm. So, what concrete steps should organizations take to create an effective AI implementation strategy that addresses both technology and skills?
So I think it can be a nuanced question, and of course, I will say it depends on the organisation and where they're at in their journey on this sort of modern AI era that we're embarking on now. But I'd say, in my experience, there are probably three things organisations need to do to have an effective AI strategy. Firstly, I think they need to just embrace AI as a capability and the value that it can potentially bring to their business. And in my experience, this starts at the top of the organization and disseminates down to everybody else. So I think it's important that the people setting the business strategy understand the value it can add, because of course this modern workforce is driving it from the bottom, but you also need, the folks at the top to do the same thing. Um, Secondly, I'd say organizations need to invest in the right hardware to bring AI to their employees, rather than giving them cutting edge AI technology on outdated hardware, which will undoubtedly lead to a poor and potentially frustrating end user experience. Invest in devices like those Copilot Plus PCs to give them the best possible start on their AI journey, whilst keeping them secure at the same time. That way, they have that excellent device experience from the off. Um, Finally, as you pointed out, addressing skill development for AI and emerging technologies is really important. And making sure that you bring the whole workforce as well, not just a siloed individual part of it, the part that already knows some of the benefits of AI, but the folks who might otherwise be left behind on that journey. Make sure that you bring those folks, everybody, the whole workforce on that journey to ensure that everyone has the necessary skills to take advantage of the investments that you're making in order to future proof your organization.
Mm.
I think if businesses do those things, then they will see successful implementation of AI within their businesses. And of course, they can also use that for other technology investments in the future. As technology evolves so quickly, having that type of a strategy means that they will be well prepared for the advent of whatever is next.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think it has to start at the top of the organization. The leadership team needs to be aware of where AI is, and I still feel that there's a big gap there. Whenever go into organizations, especially more traditional organizations and industries, I find that there's still a massive lack of awareness of where AI is and the capabilities it is acquiring to really change their organization completely. So I think there has to be a starting point. And then you're absolutely right. Technology needs to be right, skills need to be right. And I feel culture is also an important component, which I guess is part of leadership, that you're setting the right tone and you allow people to experiment and use these tools to do things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And you raise a good point. Culture is kind of tantamount to making this a success story. And as you say, that is driven from the top. I think there is a potentially a misconception out there that AI is going to replace what people do. And I think it's really important to recognize there still needs to be a human element, in my view, in terms of, what is going on day to day. AI should be used to accomplish those mundane and repetitive tasks rather than take over what you're doing, and hopefully that means that you can focus on the real value that you actually bring to the organization instead.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I like the name that you use, Copilot, because this is what it should be. You should work alongside humans. You need human oversight to use it successfully. And hopefully this technology will make us better, more efficient, and hopefully more human in the end.
Absolutely, yeah.
Looking ahead then, let's say 3 to 5 years, how do you see the relationship between AI technology and workplace skills evolving?
um, well, if anything, I think they will probably become more intrinsically linked. They're clearly linked now, but I think it will become more embedded in that process. I don't think, as I mentioned, that AI will ever replace those workplace skills so much as it will augment them. Um, so I mentioned some of the mundane tasks, things like filing emails or scheduling or even preparing for a meeting and giving you briefing notes, those kind of things. That's what AI will do. And then that will allow those employees to focus on those real value added tasks instead. That human element that we talked about, that's required for those organizations. And the skills that they have will become more important to their organization, not less. Effectively, the skills that they harbour right now will become the main thing of what they're about, rather than those repetitive, mundane tasks that nobody, let's face it, likes to do. That's where I feel that AI will add the value. And like you said, it makes everybody more efficient as well at the same time. Hopefully it would lead to gains in productivity. And certainly that is what we're seeing in customers that have invested in this technology already. And I expect that will be the case for the next 3 to 5 years. They will just become more tightly linked as a result of that.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I'm seeing too. And I always try to reassure people who are scared of AI and think it might take their job. I think it's really important to understand that lots of those elements of jobs it will take are the things that we shouldn't really waste our amazing human potential on doing. And that actually, if we bring skills like creativity, critical thinking, strategic decision making, emotional intelligence, interpersonal communication, they are the things that we as humans bring to the table, and we get distracted by admin tasks that we don't really like doing, and the AI can take over this. So hopefully in the future it will make our jobs even more human, valuing those human skills and competencies even more, and and hopefully making us more efficient. So I think the employee of the future is the one that can leverage AI successfully, hopefully with the right devices and the right skills, and bring the human element to complement it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even in my own personal experience, we have internal training, of course, that we do, and we are living and breathing the new AI sort of era with the Copilot technologies that we have internally. I'm getting meeting summaries. Even for this chat that we're having today, I asked the Copilot assistant to prepare me some briefing notes to help me out with that, and it was really, really helpful. And I think in some cases, there'll be conflicting calls that I will have during the day where I can ask the AI assistant to essentially attend a call on my behalf and summarize what I've missed, take actions, those kind of things. That's the sort of stuff that it really is useful for. And I've gotten to the point, I think, now where I probably would really struggle if somebody took it away from me, because I'm used to having that assistant there helping me all the time. So I see it becoming, as you said, more important rather than fading into the background. And it then enables me to concentrate on those human elements that we've discussed.
Yeah, exactly. So for business leaders listening to this podcast, what would be your top three recommendations for getting this technology skills balance right in organizations?
I think it goes back to that topic we discussed around the implementation strategy. That can be AI, but it can also be other technologies as well. And I think the first part of it is investing in the right technologies and making sure that the leadership team understands and is aware of the benefits that they will gain by making that investment and that disseminating down in the organization. I think the next part of it is probably making sure that they have the right hardware, be that the devices that they're using or the window, if you like, in which they're using to access their organization and the data. If you give them a poor experience, then they will blame the technology, regardless of which part of it is at fault. And I think making the right investment there will have a significant impact on the perception from the user base in terms of how the organization is investing in them. And then the other thing, which I think is probably the most important one, not to be overlooked, is the employees themselves, the people that make up those organizations, to ensure that they have the skills they need to be successful. If you do one of those things but not the other, you might end up with, if you invest in a device, then the person doesn't have the skills that they need. That leads to a wasted investment in the device potentially. If you invest in people to have the skills, but then you don't give them the technology or the devices, then that can potentially lead to a very frustrated employee who knows what they want to do and the technology they want to take advantage of, but they're unable to accomplish it, or they have a slow and clunky experience, which is going to taint their view of that technology. But I think if you strike a balance between those three things, so technology investment, the culture, as you say, in the organization, and then the skills and the training in the individual, then I think that would prepare you and it would enable you to get the balance of technology and skills right. I don't think there's a figure you can put on which one's more important than the other. I think you need to do them all concurrently in order to gain those efficiencies, that extra productivity, and to enable businesses to take advantage of the investment that they've effectively made in that whole stack. As long as you do them all together, I think you'll have a really good outcome, and that is what we are seeing in the organizations we are working with who have invested in those three things. As you said, it can have knock-on impacts on other areas of the business, things like talent acquisition and retention. They see those figures increasing when they make investments in the technology and the people. So I think it's something that becomes really crucial to organizations if they want to remain competitive and successful in their marketplaces.
Yeah, these are really good pieces of advice, Ben. Thank you so much for your time today. For anyone, whoever wants to re-watch this or hundreds of other conversations like this, simply head to my YouTube channel or any podcast platform where you can find this conversation and many, many others like this on the future of business and technology. Also, I would always love to hear from you. So if you have any comments, share any success stories or any challenges, please engage on any of the social media platforms or on the podcast and YouTube platforms where we have this content. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. And thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.